I have to tell you, I am falling in love with the city of Guanajuato. It's hard to believe that just a few hours ago I was on the beach in Puerto Vallarta. I took a quick 45-minute flight to Guanajuato, and it's a whole other world up here. Known for being one of the most beautiful places in all of Mexico, you are not going to believe all of the events that have transpired here. The history is absolutely remarkable. The city of Guanajuato sits at about 6,700 feet above sea level. That means that the climate here in the summertime is much more mild than what you will find on the coast. And this time of year, it can be downright cold. The entire municipality has a population of close to 200,000, but it feels much smaller, especially given that many of the people here are actually tourists. The city grew out of the surrounding area's rich mineral wealth and was one of the world's top silver producing areas during its heyday. The Aztec referred to this place as Mooti, or the place of minerals, and silver mining took place here long before the arrival of the Spanish. The local indigenous people placed a great deal of importance on silver, as it was used for religious ornaments and jewelry for the powerful. In addition to silver, there are stories that tell of a time when gold nuggets could be found just by strolling the nearby hills. But like elsewhere in the world, this didn't stay a secret forever, and the Spanish began taking gold and silver from the area in the early 1500s. Which led to rapid growth in this area. The Spanish were unable to force the local indigenous people to work. They actually brought in African slaves to work the mines. Despite the enormous wealth this area brought to Spain, the majority of people here lived in poverty. One of the first things you'll want to do when you get to Guanajuato is to take the funicular up the hill and take in the amazing views of the city. The funicular costs only 35 pesos one way. There is also the massive pink sandstone statue called El Papila, whose inscription reads, "There are still other Alhondigas to burn." El Papila was the nickname for a miner born with severe physical impairments, and he was given the name El Papila, or the turkey, because of the way that he walked. I am standing at the Alhondiga de Granaditas, which was a granary until the Spanish turned it into a fortress to protect themselves from the rioting masses. The Spanish troops' plan was to hold out here until reinforcements arrived. On September 28, 1810, El Papila, not fearing for his own safety, strapped a large stone to his back to protect himself from the Spanish arrows. He grabbed a bucket of tar and a flaming torch and headed for the only weak part of the fortress, the wooden door. He doused the door with tar and set it alight. This weakened the door and allowed the rioting masses to enter. That day, the entire Spanish garrison of troops were killed. This inspired the masses to revolt and enhanced the Mexican independence movement. Sometimes in history, the most insignificant people are offered the moments to become heroes and legends, as El Papila did. The Alhondiga Granary is now a wonderful museum that is well worth spending several hours exploring. The main stairway holds a mural by the local artist Jose Chavez Murado. This incredibly powerful piece tells the story of Mexico's struggle for independence and took 12 years to finish. There is also a fantastic display of photos by the Guanajuato-born artist Romaldo Garcia. His images are considered a catalog of social classes taken between 1887 and 1914. The city was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1988, and it's easy to see why. There are plenty of parks and green spaces to sit back and people watch, relax on a warm afternoon, or take in some lively mariachi music. Cafes line many of the streets around the Union Gardens. I am staying in a charming little Airbnb on Calle Alonso, right in the heart of the city, near the Plaza de la Paz, or Peace Square, which is home to the beautiful Basilica of Our Lady of Guanajuato. The basilica is home to the Our Lady of Guanajuato statue, the oldest Virgin statue in the Americas. It was created in Andalusia, Spain, and later hidden underground when the Arabs invaded Spain in the 8th century. It was rediscovered in the mid-16th century and sent here as a token for the mining wealth that the area had given to Spain. There are plenty of beautiful buildings here to explore, including the Temple of the Oratory of San Felipe Neri, the awe-inspiring University of Guanajuato, and the epic Teatro Juarez. It's not just great architecture either. The streets themselves are really interesting. There are many pedestrian-only streets, far too narrow for cars. Then there are these really beautiful streets that are walled and pass under beautiful arches. Calle Miguel Hidalgo is a particularly nice street to explore. Here, beautiful balconies and extensions of the surrounding buildings add to the character of an already unique street. You will also see lots of staircases all over town that lead down into a subterranean maze. With the city of Guanajuato being around for so long and being built so precariously on hillsides and in such a narrow valley, it is difficult to get car traffic in and out with ease. This is, however, made much easier thanks to a series of underground tunnels that run below the city. These tunnels were originally built to carry water out during the deluge of rains that would have otherwise caused widespread flooding and certainly would have damaged many of Guanajuato's beautiful and historic buildings. Then, in the 1960s, while repairing the tunnels, they decided to widen them to fit cars, leading to the underground road system that you see today. These tunnels are big. They even fit buses down here. The tunnels really transform the city, making it a much more quaint place to stroll around on foot. These tunnels add to the beauty of the city, and it's easy to see how this type of system could be utilized in other parts of the world. It's pretty dark down here, but there's a place in Guanajuato where it's even darker. This is Guanajuato's Museum of Mummies. In the late 1800s, a tax was imposed for perpetual burial. If a family could not be found or was unable to pay the tax, the bodies were removed and became government property. Due to the dry climate here, about 2% of the bodies were mummified and displayed originally by cemetery workers who would charge a small fee for viewing. This later became a museum. Amazingly, the burial tax was in place until 1958, and you can still visit the museum today to see the mummies that are on display due to this most unusual of circumstances. It's difficult to imagine such a policy now, and I'm sure it was quite shocking in its own time as well. Today there are 111 mummies, making it the largest collection of natural mummies in the world. This place is not family-friendly or for the faint of heart. After arriving here in Guanajuato, I started doing some research on all the places that I must see while I'm here, and I discovered that there is a Don Quixote museum here. And I was kind of excited by this because I'm currently reading the book Don Quixote. After wandering around town, I discovered it's not just a museum. There's a variety of statues, paintings, t-shirts, a theater, and a yearly festival, all commemorating Don Quixote. And I started to wonder, what's the fixation with Don Quixote? The book was written in 1605 by Miguel Cervantes in Spain. Cervantes never visited Mexico, So I thought, how did Don Quixote become such an icon here in Guanajuato? After doing some research and visiting the fantastic museum, I learned that Eulalio Ferrer started the Don Quixote tradition here, which is an interesting story in itself. In 1936, Eulalio Ferrer was a 19-year-old captain in the Spanish Civil War in Spain. When the war started to turn in the nationalist favor, he had to flee to France, and he was put in a French refugee camp. After living in deplorable conditions for a couple of years, he managed to trade a package of cigarettes for a copy of the book Don Quixote. And he stated that this book actually saved his sanity, and he read it over 100 times while in the refugee camp. As World War II started to loom over Europe, Ferrer fled the French refugee camp in France and migrated to Mexico. Over the years, he just kept adding and building to his Don Quixote collection until his house was bursting at the seams. And so he moved this collection from Mexico City here to Guanajuato and opened this museum. And it started a tradition that has become part of Guanajuato's culture. And there is even more history here. Guanajuato is also the birthplace of Diego Rivera. There is a really nice museum in the home where he was born and raised. I expected to just see the layout of the home, but was pleasantly surprised that there were actually dozens of paintings and drawings by Rivera. One of my favorite spots to stroll around in Guanajuato is the Hidalgo Mercado. This market is located near the historic center of the city, and it is surprisingly laid back and makes for a nice stroll or a great place to grab delicious and affordable meals. There is something really special about early mornings in Guanajuato. It's well worth strolling around while coldness still grips the streets. Vendors set up their carts for the day, workers stop for a quick breakfast, and the light cuts its way through the narrow alleys and passages. By mid-morning, the streets are bustling, but the early riser is rewarded with a special calmness and serenity that is soon swept away by the warmth of the sun. It's hard to express through video the laid-back atmosphere and positive energy here in Guanajuato. There is so much to see and do. I'm spending 11 days here, but it seems hard to fit it all in. With direct flights from the U.S., Guanajuato makes an easy travel destination for anyone looking to take in some Mexican culture and have a bit of an adventure in the process.